weekly assessment.
I'm nervous.
Oh, I'm
Take a
sure
look
I
at it
did
when you
good.
get it and see.
I think
How
I
you
did well.
did?
I finished first, so I think I did well.
Aww.
Oh,
Oh,
there.
I got a C here. I must have it.
Oh, I
Yay.
hear a lot of
Yay.
sighs and
What did you get?
disappointment.
I finished first. I finished last. First.
I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna pass back your FCAT weekly assessments from last week.
Oh, I think I did really well.
I want you to take a minute to look at your test. Remember, you don't need to show anyone else your answers. Just look at your test for a minute.
I think I did well because I finished first.
Forgot to prove
Oh,
it.
but Carolyn, remember, it's not a race. It's not about who finishes first. Oh, I hear a lot of grunting,
I forgot to prove it.
which makes me,
I finished
I'm
first.
hearing
I
you
thought I
saying
did
that you
well.
forgot to prove it.
I didn't have
Miss Deb, I
time.
did prove it. I got them all right.
I know, and I'm so proud of you.
I
But
forgot to prove something.
you forgot to prove
I
some of
didn't
yours.
prove any of them because it took too long.
Forgot what proof it.
Oh, no, we can't rush prove it. So guess what? Now, since you didn't do it in your test, and I'm sorry, Michelle, but now they didn't do it in their test, we're gonna do it during your Fun Friday time.
Oh.
Take out your
come on.
signs.
Not our signs.
Take out the signs. Come on, Diane. All right, guys, I want to hear excitement. Give me a P.
Predict!
Give me a R.
Reread!
Give me a O.
Obtain.
Give me a V.
Verify.
Give me a E.
Explain.
That's okay, Diane. All right, so we're going to start with the first one. And since Michelle did such a good job, and I'm so proud of
She
you.
always does well.
She does. And why do you think she always does well?
She proves
Yeah,
it.
I
She
think so.
proves it and she studies, and that's good. So, can you tell us about your first strategy that you used on? Let's go over number 4 because that seemed to be the one where most of us had our problem.
So, Miss Deg, after I read the story, I went back and I reread the question, and it says, what happens right after Anya complains about her mother's gift suggestions? And I circled right after because
Why did you circle right after and read it so slowly?
it's
Big
and bold
and
saying,
look at
me.
Very good. Big and bold and saying, look at me, so they must be important words. Keep going, Michelle.
So after I read the question, then I read all the choices. F. Aunt Sophie gives Anya some of her poems to copy. G. Anya worries about not having a gift for Aunt Sophie. H. Anya's mother asked her to bake a cake for Aunt Sophie. And I. Anya gets the idea to illustrate some of her aunt's poems. And after reading all of them, I really thought about what I read in the story, and I put a P by I. That's my predict.
Why did she put a P, Paul, next to her I, the letter I?
Because that was the answer that she was predicting would be the right answer.
What does that
Very
mean,
good.
predict?
It means I think it's this one. I think it is. I'm not sure. And so what I also did was I crossed out the ones that I thought weren't it.
That's a good.
Good idea.
That's a good idea.
Great idea. All right, Paul, now it's your turn. I want you to use the strategy reread, and even if you didn't do it, I want you to do it now so we can learn to do it as a class.
Okay. Well, as I'm looking at number 4, I forgot to predict, and so I'm going to put a P by my prediction now. And when I'm rereading, I'm going back into the story to find my answer, and I see it says, what happens right after Anya complains about her mother's gift suggestions? And so now I'm looking back in the story, and I see that it says, Mama had some suggestions. Why don't you knit her a scarf or bake a cake? So I'm looking right after that. I don't know.
That's
Is that
the
what you
wrong
want me to
answer,
do?
though. It's
All right, so now that Michelle's predicted, what do we need to do right after, Paul?
Well, now we have to go back and reread, and I got number 4 wrong. And what I did now after is I'm going back to predict my answer. And now I'm going to go back into the story and reread, and I see it says here that Mama had some suggestions. And I see it says what happens right after her suggestions. And so I'm looking down here And I'm rereading the part that says she was getting upset, but then Anya had an idea. She would illustrate some of her aunt's poems. So that's what I should have done. I should have reread.
Wow, Paul, I think I get it.
Yep. Yeah, you do.
I like the way you reread and found that answer. That was cool.
Yeah.
Now, since you've reread and you found it right there, I think I can obtain. That's a big word. What does that mean?
Does anyone know what obtain means? We've talked about that. Remember, we used our hands.
Like
When we
grab
obtain
something?
it.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah.
Show me
Okay.
obtain. It's like you're
Grab.
grabbing the answer out of the story. Good.
Okay, so since you predicted this was the answer,
Mm-hmm.
and you reread and found it, can I obtain it then now?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm gonna obtain it. Let's see, how do I show that? I think I'll underline it, is that right?
Mm-hmm. That's right,
Okay.
Carolyn.
That's what I
See?
should show.
I knew you could do this.
So I'm gonna
Okay.
underline, she would illustrate some of her aunt's poems. Well, that was easy. I wish I'd done that on Friday.
And you know what? I can just continue on, Carolyn, and I can verify it by writing the number of the problem. I can write a big number 4 right there. That verifies your answer that you obtained, that Paul reread, and that Michelle predicted. I got it right now.
That was good.
All right, so this next strategy is probably the most important one. Explain. This one, if you can explain why you chose your answer and why the other ones don't work, you are guaranteed to do better on this test, I promise. So Diane, I know you're feeling down about your grade, but can you try to explain and kind of just say what the others have done?
You can do it, Diane.
Yeah, I made an F and I did it. You can do it too.
You could do it.
You and I can do
it.
better.
It's okay.
You can look at my paper.
No.
Let's see what you got, Diane.
Okay.
You can do this.
I'll try.
You can do it. Okay.
It's not nice to laugh.
I'm sorry, Diane.
Explain. Okay, the first thing I should have done was predict like Michelle. And she circled right after, and then she predicted what she should have and put a P by I. Then I should have done like Paul, go back and reread, and I reread it, and then obtain like Carolyn did, and that means to grab the answer.
Good girl.
So I underlined the answer here, and then verify like Cheryl and put a number 4 by where I underlined it. That's right.
Got it.
One more.
Explain. Okay. I think I'm supposed to explain why it was I. Anya gets the idea to illustrate some of Aunt's points. Well, it's right here in the story. But then Anya had an idea she would illustrate some of her aunt's poems. That's underlined. And there's a number 4. But I've got to explain why the rest of them aren't right.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Got it.
Well, it says right here, Aunt Sophie gives Anya some of her poems to copy, and that's not there. It happens before.
Actually, that happens later on in the story.
Oh, it happened, yeah, it happens later on in the story. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
That's
Okay, it
That's
happens oh, I see it right here. It happens at the later on. But the other 2, G and H, Aunt Anya worries about not having a gift for Aunt Sophie. Oh, well, anybody knows that's not the right answer. Because that happens way before up here, because she's worrying about giving her a gift. And then I remember back here that Mama had some suggestions that said, why don't you bake her a cake? And she didn't like that because Aunt Sophie isn't fond of sweets, so she nixed that right then. So the best answer is I, because it says right here, and I have a 4 by it, and it's underlined.
Oh, right.
Does she have to write all of that?
Well, she can write some of it. She could write the other ones don't happen right after. They happen before or later on. Or we could do the underline with the number 4. As long as you have some way to explain your answer, then you have done it correctly.
Well, couldn't I just put an X by the ones that I...
You could, but that would be going back to just doing the predicting one.
Yeah, it doesn't explain.
It doesn't explain. Explaining is the most important one of all of these. They're all important, but explain, if you can explain why you chose your answer, then you know it's going to be right. And I am really proud of you guys.
And I did it!
Good job, Diana.
You guys all did it. So now, next week when we take this test, what do you think we should do? Give me a P.
Predict.
Give me a R.
Reread.
Give me a O.
Obtain!
Give me a V.
Verify.
Give me a E.
Explain!
What does that spell?
Prove.